Now, who is Affinity? Affinity, we're a network of agents. We have close to about 180 agents now in about 75 different cities nationwide. We're a nationwide company. We have offices as far as Hawaii and Alaska. We're the South Florida division. The closest one is in Tampa from here. How are we different? We're very different in the approach that we take when it comes to estate planning. We don't believe that any one person can master all of the skills and master all of the rules and regulations when it comes to investments, when it comes to estate planning, taxes, state and federal benefits, veteran benefits, and so on and so forth. What we believe in is, depending on what the client's goals are, we will actually assemble a team of professionals that are the best of what they do in order to accomplish those goals. All right, so as I mentioned, we're here in South Florida. Our headquarters is actually out of Akron, Ohio. We were just there a week ago. It was 29 degrees and snowing, so we couldn't wait to get back, that's for sure. But this is some of the folks that's in the home office that supports us. So, we have David Romans over here. Any veterans here? David Romans is a VA accredited advisor that can help out with additional resources for you that I'll show later on. Robert Hall, our CEO, is one of the holders of the very few CRFA designation in the nation, which really specializes in retirement planning. And that is really our specialty. Now, the team approach that I talked about, our clients actually like it very, very much. What Yanni can see on the legal perspective after doing this for many decades now, it's going to be a lot different than what your financial advisor would see, or maybe your tax advisor would see. Okay? We do encourage you to visit our website. It's affinityadvisornetwork.com. Or if you're like me, if you have any questions, want clarity on something, you want to see somebody eye to eye, we're more than welcome to stop by our office. We're right down the street here for you. All right, thoughts for today is this. Today's going to be strictly educational. All right? It's not advice. We simply don't know enough about your situation yet, so it's strictly advice for you. The duration, we're going to try and keep it normally to about an hour. We're running a little late, but the duration is about an hour, and our goal really today is very simple. It's concepts for today is this. We're going to be going over a big picture, about 14 to 16 different topics, about 2 to 3 minutes each. Okay? We want to make sure that everyone leaves here today with valuable information, but more important, useful information for you. And as I mentioned earlier, if you hear a topic that you want to go deeper into, come talk to us. Or if you don't hear of a topic that maybe your neighbor told you about, come see us. We're right down the street. We do want to emphasize two things. That tools and plans, they need to evolve and they need to adjust. Often, we talk to people that are in their 70s and we ask them, have you done any estate planning? And a lot of times the answer is yes. We did a will when we were in our 50s. Well, that was 20 years ago. Has anything changed in your life? Of course, the answer is yes. Most of these people have retired already, probably relocated out here to Florida. And we ask them, have you reflected any of these changes into your special documentations? More often, the answer is no. You haven't gotten around to it yet. Be very, very careful with that, because things that were important to you 20 years ago that was relevant may no longer be important anymore, may not be relevant anymore. Okay, so be careful with that. We've been doing this for many years now. We've educated probably over 10,000 people, and everyone falls into two different camps. First one are the ones that choose to prepare and have options down the road. Second ones are the ones that, for some reason, they decide not to do anything and kind of wing it and hope for the best. And often what we realize is a lot of these people end up going from a good situation to a not so good situation. They end up getting caught between a rock and a hard place, and they're scratching their heads wondering what they're going to do next. That's totally preventable with proper planning. Major takeaway here today is this. Education, tax equity is the basis for good planning. And what does planning give you? It gives you options. That's what we're preaching is you want to have options down the road. And you're going to find out later on what I mean by that. You want to have options, just like the menus that you have. We didn't just offer you just one meal, because not everyone wants the same thing. You want to have options down the road. So we're going to hang our hats on tools, okay? We're going to talk about tools and resources that could be available for you. You're going to find out what the project is as we progress through our presentation here. And we're going to find out the schedules as far as when you might want to have these tools in place for you. And then after that, I'm going to transition it over to Yanni for the key legal aspects. So let's talk about tools. I trust that most of you have some sort of estate planning tools. We're talking about tools like Medicare, Social Security, life insurance, maybe some funeral planning. Just, estate planning tools. Often though, after seminars like today, people come up to us and say, you know what, Charles? We have some or all of the tools that you're talking about, but we're still scared. We're still scared that if one or both of us ends up in an assisted living facility or a nursing home, this can be financially devastating for us. All right. A neighbor told us about long-term care insurance. Does that make sense? I'm hearing good things and bad things about that. What's the difference between a will and a trust? We're not the Rockefellers. Which ones make sense for us? The goal here today is to answer as much of these questions as possible, but I do want to ask you for one thing. As you're hearing the information and we're going through it, think about the tools that you have in place, or maybe tools that you should have in place, but more important, you want to think about what your actual goals are. Just because what we found at Affinity is a lot of people have a lot of tools available, but it's not a good fit for what they're looking to accomplish. And that's what we do here at Affinity. Okay? We help our clients identify rules that they didn't even think that they really needed. And what we realize is a lot of the tools that they have is not a good match. It's not going to accomplish what they're looking to accomplish. So let's talk about tools. This slide right here is not going to make sense for the first 20 seconds, but it will. Let's talk about probabilities here. What do you think the chances are of somebody walking into your property, slipping, falling, and suing you? Is it quite high or quite low? If you had to guess. Oh, you're right, it's low. 0.01%, 1 in 7,000. What do you think the probability is of a fire? Anybody here go through a fire? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, but it's quite low as well. It's 0.05, 1 in 2,000. How about anybody get burglarized? Home burglary? You did? Okay, sorry about that. But again, it's quite low as well. It's 0.2%. How about a car accident? Anybody been in a car accident?
Yes.
No.
Really?
I know, we're in Florida, it's like a sand or something.
You said that nobody's had an accident?
Yanni does improv on Friday as well. So
Yeah.
I'm a little business-like, and he's a good master because he makes everybody laugh. So, but serious car accident, quite low as well, 0.2%. Now, if you take a look at this, these probabilities are quite low, all right? But the events are actually quite serious, if you really think about it, right? So what do people put in place to protect themselves financially for these events? Insurance, absolutely. Very easy, right? Very easy. You buy a new car, pick up the phone, car's insured. Okay, you get your homes insured. We even insure our cell phones nowadays. My wife does, she has to, she loses it all the time. So, all right, so yeah, see, it's easy. Unfortunately for this next event, we're not very good at planning for it. And I get the idea why. It's because it's very complex. And to be honest, no one wants to talk about it. And that's this. That's the idea of any of us spending time in extended care prior to us passing. And we're talking about home health, independent living, assisted living, nursing home, hospice. And statistically, as we get older, medical technology is better, but we still, our physical abilities go down, the quality goes down, and we need this care. So what do you think the chances are? What do you think the probabilities are of all of us here, or some of us, will need some sort of extended care prior to passing? Do you think it's as low as these numbers over here? If you had to guess, what do you think it will be?
Raul, what would you say it's at?
I would say about 15%.
15. Okay. Anybody else? One more?
25.
25%.
Bill's at 30.
30. Okay. 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 Well, here you go, guys. 70%.
Wow.
So there's about 20 people here. 14 of us prior to passing will need some sort of extended care. God forbid you need memory care, that should extend. So 20, think about that, guys, 70%. And you may be thinking, you know what, that number seems a little high. Even if you lower it down to 50%, it's still much, much higher than these other events that we're so good at planning for. Okay? And some people may say, Charles, that seems still a little too high. Well, US News actually published a report that's done by Genworth that of all Americans that are reaching age of 65, 70% of them will need some sort of extended care prior to passing. Unfortunately, only 11% of the population ever plans for it. Now, doesn't it behoove you to put some thought into making some plans for an event with such a high probability? All right? Now, hopefully, all of us lives until 120, falls asleep, never wakes up again. But statistically, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Okay. So the question now is this. Okay. You know, we have tools. When should you be mindful of putting these tools into place? Okay. So there's actually 4 different phases of our financial lives. The first one is the dependency stage. And it's the older that I get, the more that I miss this, actually. This is when we just go to school, spend the summers with all of our friends. You want to go to the movies, the parents pay for it. You want some candy or something, kids, parents pay for it. This is a dependency phase, all right? Next phase is the accumulation phase. This is when we realize, you know what, I can't sponge off my parents anymore, okay? And we start our careers. We become doctors, attorneys, teachers, truck drivers, and all those wonderful careers that we were looking to accomplish. And then we get to a point where you say enough is enough, let's enjoy what we have, and that's the preservation phase. And then what you don't use up during your retirement, you probably want to leave it to family, church, or charity. That is the distribution phase. The purpose of this slide is actually very simple. Depending on where you're at this journey that we take called life, you may want to have the tools in place that's relevant to the phase of your life that you have. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Having a will during your kindergarten years does not make sense, does it? Okay, but not having a will during your accumulation and preservation years does not make sense either. Something happens to you, then you're letting the state of Florida distribute your assets. So the message here is simple for this slide. It should stay relevant. Depending on where you are in your phase of your life, you want to make sure you have tools that's relevant for that time. Okay. All right. So now, accumulation phase, there's a lot of things going on. We're working, we're getting married, buying our first home, having children, going on vacations, and so on and so forth, right? A lot of things going on. But this is also the phase of our lives that we're probably working overtime, working on weekends, maybe starting a second business to build up that nest egg that we need at retirement. Okay? Then after that, you get to a point where you say, you know what? I want to enjoy what I have now. I just want to settle down, maybe move down to Florida, spend time with our grandchildren, play golf, go fishing, go on a cruise, and just basically just enjoy life. Okay? But remember that 70% that we talked about? Remember that 70% probability? This is the point of your life that you want to assess. And you want to make sure that you have tools in place, okay, just in case you end up being a part of that 7% probability. Okay? So, now, hopefully, there's a big question right here. Hopefully, you have enough money to make it through the finish line. And guess what, guys? Hope is not a strategy. You want to make sure that you put things in place that will help increase the probability that you're going to accomplish the goals that you're looking to accomplish. And that's what we do here at Affinity. This is what we 100% believe in, is that we help people identify goals that they didn't even really think that they had. And more important, okay, we help put plans in place to help accomplish those goals. All right, so let's talk about that 70% probability. Exactly how expensive is it? Okay, these are national averages here, by the way, for long-term costs. So for home health, nationally it's about $4,000 a month. For assisted living, close to about $3,800 a month. And for nursing homes, about $8,100 a month. Okay? Now let's take a look at the state of Florida. State of Florida